Rick had those belts 3 different times. And that was the first Dream Team. Not me and just Beefcake. That Flair and Valentine was a great tag team. Really good. Rick was a great partner, a great friend.
I would have thought that you guys would have been paired up again, like in WWF, like later on, when you guys crossed paths there and, some of these other
Well, when he
areas.
first came in, I was leaving. So this was like, I think, 92. We were in this, it was the first time he was there, and it was a Royal Rumble in Albany, New York. This is 92. This was Flair's very first appearance. And Flair was the last guy in it, and it was for the world belt, is what it was. And he yells at me, "Greg, put the figure 4 on me." So he did me a favor there. And right after that, I left. I think I went to WCW. That didn't work out all that well because Bill Watts was the booker, and I didn't get along with him at all. I ended up quitting. I mentioned that where they wanted me to do a job for Sting, and I just said, I ain't doing it. Yeah, it actually ended up being great for me because I went independent. And back then, independence was really good. I didn't need to be on TV all the time because everybody knew I was. And then I went to Japan and Europe. It was over there with Warrior and Hercules and Jake. And independent scene in Europe was great. And like I said, Japan. And we had big, big shows. I don't know how the independents are now, but we had some big independent shows, especially right around the New York area. So it was really good. And of course they would use guys off WWF TV and people would know, hey, he's going to be there, he's going to be there. The payoffs were good. And as far as being independent, you were your own boss. And that was great. I never realized there was a market like that till I quit. And as soon as, I don't know how these guys find that stuff out, but as soon as I quit, it was like my phone's ringing off the hook. And this is before cell phones. And I'm getting all kinds of calls. So I was actually worried a little bit. What am I going to do, I didn't worry too long. I was in my 40s. I still was young enough to not want to work,
You're one of the biggest draws on the independents from that time period. I mean,
Right.
There's not a lot of names that, up until today, you're still doing the signings. You're still one of the most booked people.
Well, I was 20 years off that WWF TV and 10 years before that off the NWA TV. So that's a lot of exposure. That's 30 years of constant television. And then a couple small runs I had in WCW, and they treated me pretty good, but just didn't get along with the bookers.
You were in every possible era and doing something, unique.
Right.
And big in every area, I don't really know too many guys who can say that.
Well, I want to say one thing as far as Hogan and Flair, and everybody puts those guys over, but I think I'm better than both of them. I did longer matches than Flair. Well, Flair was 60-minute man, he called himself, but I'm the guy that did 60 minutes. I did 60 minutes in Madison Square Garden. I did 60 minutes everywhere. I did, Flair calls himself the 60-minute man. I don't know if he's talking about wrestling. I'm talking about wrestling. I liked Hogan as a friend, but I couldn't believe what I saw where he put Flair over and said, Flair's number 1 and I'm number 2. I said, guess what? I'm number 1 and both you guys are 5 or 6. I sold out Madison Square Garden 16, 17 times. I lost count. How many times? Well, Hogan's got a bad hit because all he did was beat guys with that leg drop. Hey, I'm calling these guys out, Flair, I consider both of them friends, but you know what? I think I'm better than they are. I know I'm better than they are.
Hasn't that been like the one knock on Ric Flair too? No disrespect to him, but when he was doing a lot of these longer matches, they weren't in Madison Square Garden. They weren't on some of those. It was more so the NWA stuff, which
right. He wasn't on the big TV like I was all these years. He was on WCW and NWA TV, and Rick was a great interview and a great wrestler, but I think he repeated himself a lot. He tried to do that thing where he'd land on his face like I did. He had to kick up a leg and do it. I went straight down to land on my head. He tried to do that thing. I don't know if he copied me but he'd throw that little leg up. It was no good. It looked like shit. I was better. You watch a Flair match, you'll see the same thing. Like 10 days later, you'll see him doing the same match he had where he flipped over in the corner and did all that sort of thing. I didn't do that. I tried to make all my matches different. I tried to wrestle more instead of taking a bunch of goofy-ass bumps, because bumps are not real. Backdrops are not real. Suplexes, slams, elbow drops, I mean, that's real shit. But, doing all that crazy shit, I just think I was a better worker. I mean, I know I was better. And sometimes I don't get credit for it, so I'm going to give myself credit right now. Well, I will say one match, and I had a lot of good matches with Rick, but I will say one match, because I came to that WrestleMania, and I'll give credit where credit is due. It was in Orlando, outdoors, and it was Flair against Shawn Michaels. That was an incredible match. That was really a great match. Of course, it takes two guys to make a great match. And Shawn Michaels was fantastic, and so was Rick. So that being said, I put that on a pedestal.
And your stuff just in the early WWF, this is before Hogan really broke out. He was still,
right,
but he wasn't at the peak. You were, in '79 just alone. With
well,
the
I did that.
matches.
I did that hour match with Bob Backlund, and Bob was not easy to work with, but I learned how to work with him, and we did that first ever hour long in Madison Square Garden. I remember Vince Sr., and I love Vince Sr., and he goes, "We want you to go on our Broadway," and I just came off of doing hour-long matches with Flair and Piper and all that stuff down in Mid-Atlantic. I'm thinking, oh, I'm going to go up Madison Square Garden and go 10 minutes and get out of there. But you know what? It ended up being really good. And Bob was so strong, NCAA champion. Talking about a shooter, he actually got tired after 20 minutes. So I said, good, because I'm used to doing those Broadways, those long matches. And it ended up being a fantastic match. And then I went back to Carolinas later on, and then I came back again, and they're going, listen, you're going to wrestle Bob again, and everybody's going to think it's be another hour-long match. But I did the double suplex thing where I had him down. They held the belt up because I raised my shoulder, because I was the guy administering. It was actually both of our shoulders were down, but they gave me the belt, and then they held the belt up for a month. That was fantastic. That was chaos at the Garden. I can't forget that the first time I went there, I broke Jay Strombow's leg. That was fabulous, and what a good guy he was too. And we used to sell out everywhere because Jay Strongbow, they loved him. He was the number 2 babyface behind Backlund, but they loved him. It's the second time I came back into New York. I did a thing with Pedro Morales after I did the Bob Backlund thing where they held the belt up, and I suplexed Morales on the cement floor. This back where they had pads around the ring and stuff, and he sold it like a champ. And I hurt the hell out of my left arm, but I did good business with Pedro. And I pretty much thought they were going to let me have the IC belt, but that didn't happen. Went back to Mid-Atlantic, and I did the famous dog collar match with Piper. Yeah. And you can dig up on YouTube the matches that that were to build up that dog collar match. They were better than the dog collar match. These matches that I have with Piper was knockdown, drag out, and it was a thing where I rammed his head into the pipe, the ring post, which built up to that dog collar match, and he gigged his own ear and is bleeding profusely. What a guy. And God, every time I think of Piper passing on, it brings a tear to a glass eye. But he was great. And so after the dog collar match, I went back to New York again, and then we did that thing where I broke Tito's leg and got the IC belt. And what made that so good was I just beat him with a roll-up, and he already had a bad leg. I 1, 2, 3, and then I got out of the ring. I jumped back in the ring, and I nailed him and put the figure 4 on him and really did some damage. And then they showed it on television where he was getting operated on. And you know what? He chased me for a year. We sold out everywhere. We didn't need Hogan on the card. We didn't need anybody on the card. It was just me and Tito. I chased him for a year. Then he got the belt back from me, and then he chased me for a year, and then he got the belt back from me, and then I ended up chasing him. And I tell you what, I think we did 3 years of back and forth. And Tito Santana, fabulous, good person, great worker, the best.